James Comey makes an unusual admission about all those Biden-era pardons. Democrats and rhinos in Congress continue to circle the political drain, and President Trump returns from a two-day trip to China as the world awaits the results. It's Friday, May 15th, and this is news and commentary from America's Heartland. You're watching Heartlander News. Well, hey there, and welcome in to Heartlander News. I'm Chris Stigall. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about President Trump's trip to China and what it means for all of us as Americans, specifically our farmers. Our farmers, you may not know this, grow more soybeans than almost anywhere else in the country, right here in America's heartland. And for years, China has been the biggest buyer of those beans. Well, as you know, when that market's open, it puts money in farmers' pockets and in our economy writ large. However, when it's closed, it hurts. So this visit by President Trump matters for a whole host of reasons. In industry, big tech, and in ag too. The stakes for our family farms are high. So a good outcome from this meeting could reopen doors for farmers' soybeans and bring back the kind of prices that our growers deserve and hopefully impact your prices at the grocery store too. I know that most of us are likely following the president's two-day meeting with President Xi closely. These negotiations in Beijing, they're not just garden variety diplomacy. They're about the bottom line for hardworking families all across the country, specifically in the heartland. Because our family farms feed the world and they deserve every chance to compete. So we hope the president and his team did well. We've wished them the very, very best on this trip as he returns home. I believe he's working day and night to make our farmers great again. And keep a sharp eye on how these negotiations will affect Iran as well. This is something that Marco Rubio brought up recently when asked what was asked of President Xi and help with Iran. Marco Rubio had this to say in clip 88.
What exactly did President Trump ask President Xi for when it comes to Iran?
He didn't ask him for anything. I mean, we're not asking for China's help. We don't need their help.
But he raises the issue.
We raise the issue to make clear what our position is and to make it clear so they understand, because I mean, it's logical we would talk about it given how dominant that issue is. Our position is very clear. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And that's what they were on the verge of building a conventional capability where they had so many rockets, so many drones that you couldn't do anything against them. They would hide behind that conventional shield to do whatever they wanted with their nuclear program in the future. That's why the president chose to act. In response to that, Iran has decided that they're going to take an international waterway and turn it into theirs and charge tolls for it. We're not going to allow that to happen, and that's why there's a blockade. It's a direct result of what they've done.
What exactly?
Yeah, this is important. Again, keep a sharp eye on how these negotiations will affect all of this, because when oil flows freely, as the secretary said, through the Strait of Hormuz again, the golden age is going to be back in high gear. What publicly is being said? Not much. Privately, I suspect China might be helping turn the screws on Iran. But we thank goodness that President Trump, as far as I'm concerned, is back in the White House, because as far as I'm concerned, this is the best negotiator this country has ever seen, certainly in my lifetime. Meanwhile, President Trump was asked specifically about Iran, and his patience is clearly wearing thin here in clip 91.
Take one plane, 1 minute. That's all it would take. When you do that, you start off, that's a big statement to do that. Now, you also have bridges. You also have electric plants, which I think in many ways are worse because you can get the oil open faster than you can build a new bridge or build a new electric plant. But these guys should make a deal. I mean, only crazy people would not make a deal, but they should make a deal. And President Xi would like to see a deal made. He would like to see a deal made. And he did offer, he said, if I can be of any help at all, I would like to be of help. Because,
he did say that.
Yeah, he did say that. And look, anybody that buys that much oil has obviously got some kind of a relationship with him. But he said, I would love to be of help. If I can be of any help whatsoever, he'd like to see the Hormuz Strait open. He said, if I could be of any help whatsoever, I would like to help.
What has complicated things probably the most is the top three-tier leadership is wiped out.
It's gone.
Now you have a fractured leadership.
Yeah, but I think we have people that are leaders. I think they're much better than, I think they're much more reasonable. You know, if you talk about regime change, that's the ultimate. No, I said that is serious regime change, right? The third tier that we're dealing with now, I think they're actually much more reasonable and in many ways smarter than the first tier and the second tier, who are no longer with us.
And why aren't they? Why do they go forwards and backwards?
They make a deal, and the next day, like we waited 5 days for a letter that should have been there 1 hour. So where's the letter? They're having a lot of turmoil. They got nothing but turmoil inside. And it's an amazing phenomenon. Nobody wants to be the president. You know, it's like they say, who wants to be president of Iran? Anybody want to be president? Everyone says, I don't want to be president.
But I've known you long enough to know you don't have infinite patience. You have patience. You're being patient.
No, I'm not going to be much more patient. No, I'm not. They should make a deal. Any sane person would make a deal. But they might be crazy.
They might be crazy, and they are. Then they're Islamo-fascist theocracy, so they probably are crazy. But it's interesting here, Marco Rubio saying Trump didn't ask Xi for anything. Trump saying Xi offered help. So we will watch closely to see what comes of that. Meanwhile, from Breitbart today, CENTCOM reports Iran's forces have been severely degraded. Every objective in Operation Epic Fury has been met. Brad Cooper of CENTCOM said Thursday that Iran's military capabilities have been degraded across every domain following the U.S. air campaign against the Islamic Republic, declaring every military objective that was set out during Epic Fury has been achieved, while asserting that the Iran regime and their terror proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, have been completely cut off from weapons supplies and support from Tehran. Speaking before the Senate Armed Services Committee, Cooper described an Iranian regime whose military-industrial base, proxy network, naval forces, and command structure had all been severely battered during the nearly 6-week kinetic phase of the conflict. So he says we met every military objective. Trump says he doesn't have infinite patience. Xi offered help. Rubio says we don't need the help, but if Xi wants to, great, we got it. What does that mean ultimately? Everybody here is waiting to see if oil prices fall, if gas prices fall at the pump. But here again, it's important to refresh our memories on what it means. You know, when people, and I get asked this from time to time, Chris, what do you think of this strike in Iran? Was that necessary? Should we have done it? Marco Rubio, in number 88 here, reminds us what it would mean for all of us globally with a nuked up Iran that was able to defend itself and not stop anybody from taking them out.
We've taken extraordinary measures to keep gas prices lower than they are in some other parts of the world, and it will go down. Those straits will be open, and we will see those prices go down. And actually, I think you're going to see a dramatic reduction in oil over time, because all of that pent-up oil that's being held hostage by Iran, once that reaches the marketplace, it'll have a very positive impact. But I would also say there's a price attached to a nuclear Iran. If Iran ever acquires a nuclear weapon, they will immediately, what would stop them from controlling the straits then? And then forget about it being a 3-month or a 6-month problem. It could be a permanent one. We've taken extraordinary measures.
Yeah, and Marco Rubio's stock is going through the roof right now. I don't know how you feel about him, but a lot of people who are Republican voters, conservatives, Trump enthusiasts have been watching Marco Rubio and approve very much of his performance. Meanwhile, J.D. Vance has been crisscrossing the country, making some campaign stops ahead of the midterms. This actually came up, and I thought it kind of interesting. J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio are friends. There's no animus there, former colleagues in the Senate. Give me number 84 here. J.D. Vance, while out there stumping, was asked about the potential future here. J.D. versus Marco.
Can you tell me a little bit about, the president has been toying this idea of a joint ticket between you and Rubio. What do you think about that?
Oh, man. What I think is there are a few topics that I want to talk about less than what office I'm going to run for years down the road when I'm having a good time and trying to do good work, the job that the American people already elected me to do. Look, as I've answered this question probably in any number of ways. I love Marco. I think he's a great Secretary of State. He's become a very, very dear friend. But I think both of us are very much focused on accomplishing the American people's business right now. If I was the American people, there are a few things that I would hate more than a person who's barely been in one office for a year and a half, who's angling for a job 2.5 years down the road. Let's do a good job now. We just got to keep at it.
Isn't that refreshing? And how true is that? You know, we're celebrating 250 years as a country this year. And once upon a time, it used to be that professional people left their jobs for a period of time to volunteer to go into public service and help govern the country. Then, after that period of time, they returned back to their private sector lives and the businesses from whence they came. Wouldn't that be refreshing? J.D. Vance giving us a little of that. I don't think there's much of an appetite in the American electorate to hear relatively newly elected politicians, which J.D. Vance is, after all. We're not quite a year and a half in, right? Or something like that. Little tough to take people discussing their next rung climb politically while we're all still staring down the barrel of very expensive groceries and food. And you know, frankly, we don't quite know what's going on with Iran or China. There's a lot about the country that's going great, more to be fixed, and President Trump and the Vice President and Secretary of State are all focused on it. And the press and many other people want to continue to drive these wedges. And J.D. Vance not taking the bait there, saying, we've got work to do. American people don't want to listen to politicians scheming their next play. Bravo to J.D. Vance. It was brilliantly handled. Meanwhile, Donald Trump said that Xi over there in China has agreed to order 200 Boeing jets during their high-level meeting. That was one hard and specific thing that came out of it. Speaking in an exclusive interview yesterday on Hannity, which you saw some of it there, Trump described the talks with Chinese leader Xi as very good, said the aircraft commitment exceeded Boeing's expectations. He's going to order 200 jets. That's a big thing. That's a lot of jobs. It's a lot. Boeing wanted 150. He gave them 200. So we don't know what else came of this. It was a 2-day summit. It was largely considered successful, at least from the outside. They rolled out the red carpet. They gave him exclusive tours. They had the creepy jumping up. Did you see the creepy kids jumping up and down, waving the flags and the flowers like little robots? That's just creepy. I know Beijing is always trying to display these things to make them either look strong or, I don't know, organized or reverent or whatever it is they're trying to do. It always just looks eerie, doesn't it? Is there anything that comes out of that place that's not creepy? But Trump was very deferential, and he rolls out with 30 of the biggest leaders in tech and business in the country with him alongside. And I read a lot of commentary about this, that this was a reminder that effectively all of the industry that he brought sitting with him shoulder to shoulder represented, in terms of gross domestic product, the entire economy of China, sitting shoulder to shoulder with President Trump. And it was basically, many people believe, a signal to say, we're here. We want to continue to do business with you. Don't screw us. We're not here to play. All these guys represent the worth of your entire country. They can do business with you or not. How do you want to play this? So this was seen as a diplomatic masterstroke by most who are fair-minded. It was not heavy-handed. It was just a reminder of what the United States has to offer. China depends on so much of the industry President Trump brought. He tackled this as a business transaction. He didn't go there giving a speech, thinking that just speechifying and talking from various bureaucrats was going to get it done. He reminded Xi of the hard and fast numbers, the hard and fast industry and commerce that both countries need to sustain and thrive. And we'll see what comes of it. Now, the Taiwan thing is still an issue. Chinese leader Xi Jinping, this from the Washington Post, warning Trump on Thursday that conflicts could emerge if the two powers mishandle Taiwan. Now, Taiwan's economy is a big deal, and if that starts to go wobbly, it's a big problem for everybody. Certainly those in Australia, Japan, and the surrounding area, they're deeply concerned about China taking over Taiwan officially. And China said, this is no dice. We're not dealing on this thing. You are not going to grant Taiwan their own sovereignty, and we're not going to hear it, and we don't even want to discuss it. So that apparently didn't go very far, and President Trump kind of suggested he wasn't necessarily there to discuss that anyway. And That always remains one of the stickier points about all of this. China is not giving up Taiwan in their own minds. The United States doesn't officially say this in so many words, but our kind of official, unofficial position is China really can't take over Taiwan. But if they tried, what would we do? Shipping lanes there, the economy, that's a much bigger deal. And so ostensibly this meeting was to kind of cool things down, calm things down. Let's get our economies humming without talk of you taking over Taiwan. So we'll see. I mean, it's impossible to know exactly what came of it. The follow through is always the important part. 2 days of shows and little weird kids jumping up and down. That's all fine and good, but it's the proof's in the pudding. And so we will continue to follow it.